Did you just do an LS swap and your car won't start? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over the 4 main reasons that I see on a regular basis for this and how to fix it. Okay guys, before we get into this, I just want to remind you, if this video helps you out, don't forget to click that thumbs up button. And also, be sure to check out the rest of my LS Swaps tips and tricks playlist for more little, well, tips and tricks on how to do your LS swap, some problems you might have, and some ways to get through them. Now, doing this video, I'm going to handle things a little differently than you're probably used to seeing on YouTube channels. What I want to do is, instead of starting with the least common thing and working my way down to what is probably ultimately your problem, I'm going to start off with the absolute most common problem that I see as to why an LS swap doesn't start immediately after you do it. I'm going to do this because I don't want you to have to spend any more time than you absolutely have to watching this video. You know, if I can tell you how to fix it right off the bat, that's what I'm going to do, so you can get out there, get in the garage, and start getting stuff done. Now, as soon as I said that, I know probably 2/3 of the people watching this video immediately thought, oh, well, I know what that is. Well, guess what, guys? I ain't talking about VATs. Nope. The #1 most common problem that I see when people's LS swaps will not start has nothing to do with the PCM and has everything to do with using the wrong power wire to trigger your relay. So I'm going to run down the scenario that I deal with, I'm going to say probably 5 to 6, maybe 7 times a week, guys. And yes, I get asked this question this many times, and it goes almost the same way every time. Guy asks me either on the Bad Luck Garage group page on Facebook or in the comments on a video, or sometimes they'll actually email me and they'll say, hey man, so my LS swap, it won't start. You know, they said I got everything wired up, I checked, I've got fuel pressure, but for some reason it won't start. It's acting like it's not getting fuel or not getting fire. Now, whenever somebody asks me this, the first question I usually ask them is, you know, did you delete VATs? Or, you know, in the case that they bought an aftermarket harness and PCM, you know, I say, did it have VATs deleted? Almost 100% of the time they say yes. So then I go to this. I say, have you checked for power at your coils and at your fuel injectors? I almost 99% of the time get a yes out of that question too. Then I say, okay, did you check for power at your coils and your fuel injectors while you were cranking the engine? And they're like, yeah, man, I already told you. And I said, no, that's not what I asked. This is where the argument usually starts, because it's not clicking in people's heads what I'm asking them. So my next question is, okay, then who helped you check it? And almost 100% of the time they say, I did it myself, which instantly tells me they did not check what I told them to check. So here's the deal, guys. There are 2 different kinds of switched 12-volt power sources, okay? You have a key-on 12-volt power source. Now, what this means is when you turn your key forward, it's going to provide power. A lot of people mistakenly tie that into their harness to trigger the relay to turn on the harness and the PCM and everything. That's not the power lead you need. What you need is a 12-volt ignition switched power source. And what that means is a key-on 12-volt source, what it's going to do is when you turn the key forward, it's going to give you power. But as soon as you turn that key forward to try to crank the vehicle, it's going to shut the power off. So what's happening is you're coming out here, you're turning your key forward, you're checking for power at your coils and your fuel injectors, and you're saying, yeah, man, I got power. But what's happening is as soon as you turn that key forward, you don't have power anymore. 99, like a solid, guys, 99% of the time when someone says my LS swap isn't starting, this is the problem. They've tied in a key-on 12-volt instead of an ignition 12-volt. Now, the way I overcome this, and this isn't going to help everybody, but you know, if you're swapping a GM vehicle, I generally tell people to use the power lead that was going to the HEI distributor. Use that to trigger your main relay for your harness, because that wire is an ignition hot. Even when you go to the cranking position, it's going to stay hot. Cars are going to fire up. Now, in case you haven't figured it out already, the reason I knew they didn't check what I told them to check is because they said they did it by themselves. This is almost always a two-person job. You got to have one person in there turning the key forward, cranking the car, while you've got another person out here checking for power at the coils and the fuel injectors. And right there, right now, if you've just watched this video because your LS swap won't start, I honestly suggest that you go back right now, shut this video off, or just pause it in case it's not the problem. Pause this video, grab your wife, grab your kid, grab your buddy, grab your dog if he can turn a key, whatever. Go out there, have somebody start cranking your car while you check for power at your coils and at your fuel injectors. If that did not work, then we're going to go on to most common problem number 2. And here you go, guys. Here's your VATS. Most common problem number 2 is VATS is not disabled. And what this usually looks like is the car will try to start, or sometimes it will start. It'll fire right off. It'll run for about a second or two, and then it'll die and it won't start again. Or sometimes it may just keep starting and dying, okay? That's a pretty good indicator that your VATS hasn't been disabled. So I'm going to tell you how to do that real quick, guys. If you have HP tuners, if you are dealing with a Gen 3 PCM, that would be a P01 or a P59 PCM. What you're going to do, you're going to go into HP tuners, you're going to go under the system tab, and it's right there in your face. It's going to say VATS. Most of the time it is going to be set to serial. What you're going to do, you're going to click on your drop down menu, you're going to set it to none, and then this is very important, you're going to do a write entire. Okay, guys? I know for most changes, you can just write changes, write changes only. When you're trying to shut off the VATS, you need to do a write entire, because a lot of times what happens is if you just do a write changes, it doesn't take. So you think you've disabled VATS, you go back out there, car's doing the same thing, you're like, oh shit, man, well I already disabled VATS, so that ain't it, and that's still the problem. You got to do a write entire, guys, just to be sure. Now, on Gen 4 PCMs, which would be like your P38s, it's a little bit different. Once again, you're going to go on HP tuners, but it is not under the systems tab on the Gen 4 stuff. You're going to have to click on the OS tab, which is the tab that looks like a little computer chip. Once you click on that, it's going to pull down a menu. You're going to be on the General tab, and you're going to see actually 2 VATS there. It's going to say VATS Patch 1, VATS Patch 2. All you got to do is set both those to disabled for the Gen 4 PCMs. Again, I recommend that you do a write entire instead of a write changes. That should take care of your VATS issue. Now, on a side note, this does not always happen in most PCMs that I've dealt with. This stuff's already disabled, but if it throws a code for a theft, some kind of theft code or something like that, I think the codes are like 6130 or 6110. It's in the 6,000s, the P6, XXXs. You may have to go in there and set those to no error reported. Just look for codes that say something about the vehicle anti-theft system, something like that. Set all those to no error reported. You should be good. All right, moving on to problem number 3, grounds. So here's the deal with this, guys. If you have a reworked factory harness, most of the people that I know that rework factory harnesses, they combine all the grounds into one ground, and you're going to ground that out on the back of the driver's side cylinder head or passenger side, it's whatever. If you're redoing your own harness, I suggest you tie it all into one ground too, and this is the reason why. Especially when you're working in a tight engine bay, a lot of the times that ground will get overlooked. If you've got 2 or some factory applications actually have 3 grounds. They'll have like 2 on the back and 1 in the front. A lot of times you'll forget to ground one of those. This can lead to a no start issue, or in some vehicles, it can lead to the vehicle starting but just running weird, running like crap. I'll tell you a little problem I've had before on a drive-by-wire vehicle. You start it up, the pedal doesn't respond. You know, you get a reduced engine power mode. That can be caused by a loose ground or a ground that's not hooked up. So always make sure that you hook up your grounds. If you've got more than one, make sure you get them all hooked up. The back of the heads, front of the head, you know, on a factory harness. Like I said, most aftermarket harnesses, they just have one ground. I think the Holley harnesses, they actually have two, one for the back of each cylinder head. But just make sure you hook those up, guys. It's very important on these fuel-injected vehicles, you know, modern engines. They need good grounds. Don't ground them to a painted surface. If you've painted your block, just stick to the cylinder heads, guys. That's the main thing. Just ground them to the back of your cylinder heads. You should be golden. Guys, and here we are finally at problem number 4. This is the least common problem, and this is actually not a problem that would most likely cause the vehicle not to start, but it will cause it to immediately start running like shit, okay? And that is open headers. Now this applies only if you are running the car and you still have closed loop enabled. I know a lot of guys, if they're building, you know, a race car, they'll just turn the closed loop off. But here's what it looks like, guys. You start the car up. The car seems like it's running great. You rev it, it's got good throttle response. Everything is great. You're like, this is awesome. And the longer you leave it running, the worse it starts running. So you shut it off, you check your fuel pressure, you check this, you check that, and you think, man, everything looks good. So you start it back up again, and guess what? Now it's running like shit right off the bat, okay? I mean, the thing's just, it's running like crap. If you have open headers, that's probably your issue. You guys actually saw this. Those of you who kept up with the DR Nova build we did last year, we actually had this problem on the DR Nova. We were running a set of headers, and the O2 sensors were about this far from the end of the collector. So what happens is the O2 sensors are seeing all that outside air from the open header. So it's telling the computer, hey, we're running really lean, we need more fuel. Well, the computer starts dumping more and more fuel in, choking the engine out, and eventually it just won't run at all. Now you think this is just going to be a problem in closed loop, but what your computer does, guys, is the long-term fuel trims, they stay in there, and your computer uses that at part throttle to help run your vehicle. So once it knows that there was a lean condition in the past, until those long-term fuel trims reset, it's going to keep applying the same corrections that it had originally applied to try to correct those conditions. And that's why even after you shut the car off, let it cool down, start it back up, it's not going to matter, because as soon as you start that car back up, it's going to start applying those long-term fuel trims, which are going to be making it run rich as shit because it was seeing all that extra oxygen. Now, if you're just trying to limp this thing to an exhaust shop, the best way I can tell you to remedy this is to set the PCM to where it will not go into closed loop. You do that by going into your short-term fuel trims, clicking disable for your short-term fuel trims. For your long-term fuel trims, you have to set all the temp tables that enable long-term fuel trims. Just max those out for like 256 degrees, whatever it is, whatever will let you put in there. And that'll keep it from going into closed loop and trying to correct the condition. That should allow you to run on the open headers, if you absolutely have to drive the vehicle to an exhaust shop or something like that to get your exhaust ran. That should get you through it. Now, important to note, if you have already ran it in closed loop and it's already running like shit, then what you need to do at that point is, after you disable long-term and short-term fuel trims, then you need to go in there and reset your fuel trims, which there's a little button in your VCM suite. Your sorry guys, your VCM scanner. You'll see a little button in there that allows you to reset your fuel trims under, sorry guys, I'm having a brain fart right now, but it's under your controls. There's a little tab up there for controls where you can manually adjust timing, things like that. it's going to be under there. You're going to see a little button that says reset long-term fuel trims. You just click on that, it resets them. Should be good. I do want to say, these are the 4 most common problems I see, guys. These are not all of the problems, okay? It could be something entirely different. You could have bad fuel injectors. Your fuel pump could be leaking in the tank. You know, you could not have enough fuel pressure. You could have, you know, a ground in your harness that, or a bare wire in your harness that's grounding out. But these are the 4 most common issues that I see. I also want to say this, guys. A lot of you old schoolers, and I'm including myself in this too, because I grew up driving, you know, 80s era cars. A lot of the older guys like me and older, we have this thing in our head about PCMs going bad, you know. So when something's acting quirky, the first thing, you know, older guys tend to think is, oh, the computer's bad, the computer's bad. I want to tell you this, guys. This isn't the 1980s anymore. It's not the early 90s. Most of these modern computers, these PCMs and ECUs, they almost never go bad, guys. It's almost always something simple. 99% of the time, it's one of the 4 issues that I just told you about. So just get the PCM thing out of your head until you check these 4 issues. If you've checked these 4 issues, then you need to go back to basics, you know, start checking your fuel pressure, all that, and, you know, you should be able to get it figured out just doing the basics. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks once again for watching. Once again, I do want to tell you, make sure you check out the rest of the LS tech tips and tricks videos. They're in that playlist. A lot of stuff to help you out. What I also want to ask you guys to do is, if you have anything else, once you check out that playlist, make sure you check that out first. If you have any other questions that you think might make a good video, just little LS tech tips that you want to ask me, put it in the comments down below, guys. If I can make a video on it, I'll make a video on it. If you're subscribed to the channel, you'll see it and it'll help you out. So once again, thanks for watching. If you like this video, especially if this video helped you out, make sure you give it that thumbs up. Share it with somebody else that it might help out. Get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.